Good day everyone. My name is Jerlyn Soliguen of BSECE 3A. So for today, I'm going to present to you my performance task 5 in ECE 23 Communication 2. So what are the topics to be discussed? So the topics to be discussed is digital modulation, modulation techniques, other variants, AIS modulation, electronic system using GMSK. So what is the digital modulation? It is the process of encoding a digital information signal into the amplitude, phase, or frequency of the transmitted signal. The encoding process affects the bandwidth of the transmitted signal and robustness to channel impairments. So you can see here the more information about digital modulation. I'll just gonna pause it for a few seconds, and I'm going to go to the next slide. So modulation techniques, ASK, PSK, and FSK. These are the three types of digital modulation: the amplitude shift keying, frequency shift keying, phase shift keying. So what is the ASK? It is the popular modulation technique used in digital data communication for a large number of low frequency RF applications. The following figure represents the ASK modulated waveform along with its input. You can see here the input binary sequence and the ASK modulated output wave. So, what is the PSK? It is the digital modulation technique in which the phase of the carrier signal is changed by varying the sine and cosine inputs to a particular time. So, the following figure represents the PSK modulated waveform along with its input. So, what is FSK? It is the digital modulation technique in which the frequency of the carrier signal varies according to the digital signal's changes. So the following image is the diagrammatic representation of FSK modulated waveform along with its input. As you can see here, you can see the input binary sequence and the FSK modulated output wave. So what are the other variants? The other variants are minimum shift keying, MSK, a type of continuous phase frequency shift keying, or CPFSK, Gaussian minimum shift keying, GMSK, trellis code modulation, differential phase shift keying, DPSK, differential differential quadrature phase shift keying, DQPSK, differential binary phase shift keying, DBPSK. So we're gonna talk more in this discussion is the Gaussian minimum shift keying. So what is GMSK? So it is a form of modulation based on frequency shift keying that has no phase discontinuities and provides efficient use of spectrum as well as enabling high efficiency radio power amplifiers. It is a form of frequency modulation that is used in radio communication system. It is a modified version of minimum shift keying modulation where the phase is further filtered through a Gaussian filter to smooth the transition from one point to the next in the constellation. It is probably most used, widely associated with the 2G GSM mobile communication system where it proves to be an effective form of modulation. It was one of the reasons that GSM cell phone had a long battery life in views of the high efficiency that could be obtained from RF power amplifiers. So what are the basics of JMSK? So GMSK modulation is based on MSK, which itself is a form of continuous phase frequency keying, or CPFSK. One of the problems with the standard form of PSK is that sidebands extend out from the carrier. To overcome this, MSK and its derivative GMSK can be used. So the MSK and also the GMSK modulation are what is known the continuous phase scheme. There are no phase discontinuities because the frequency changes occurs in the carrier zero crossing points. This arises as a result of the unique factor of MSK that the frequency difference between the logical 1 and logical 0 states is always equal to half of the data rate. This can be expressed in the term of the modulation index, and it is always equal to 0.5. This is, as you can see here, the picture is the concept of a minimum shift keying MSK signal. So power spectral density waveform. So it is a plot of spectrum of an MSK signal shows the sidebands extending well beyond a bandwidth equal to the data rate. This can be reduced by passing the modulating signal through a long pass filter prior to applying it to the carrier. The requirements for the filter are that it should have a sharp cutoff, narrow bandwidth, and its impulse response should show no overshoot. The ideal factor is known as the Gaussian filter, which is has a Gaussian shape response to an impulse and no ringing. In this way, the basic MSK signal is converted to GMSK modulation. So this is the GMSK spectral density with offset from the carrier. So, generating JMSK modulation, there are two main ways in which the JMSK modulation can be generated. First is the using VSO, and the next is the using an IQ modulator. So, generating JMSQ modulation using VSO, the most obvious way is to filter the modulating signal using a Gaussian filter and apply it to frequency modulator where the modulation index is set to 0.5. This method is very simple and straightforward, but it has the drawback that a modulation index must be equal to 0.5. In practice, this analog method is not suitable because component tolerance drift and cannot be set exactly. So, as you can see here, this is the GMSQ modulator using the VCO. So always remember the modulation index is equals to 0.5. So generating GMSQ modulation using an IQ modulator. A second method is more widely used. Here what is known as the quadrature modulation is used. The term quadrature means that the phase of the signal quadrature are 9 degrees to another one. The quadrature modulation uses one signal that is said to be in phase and another that is quadrature to this. In view of the in phase quadrature elements, this type of modulation is often used as the IQ modulator. Using this type of modulator, the modulation index is maintained at exactly 0.5 without the need for any settings or adjustments. This makes it much easier to use and capable of providing the required level of performance without the need of adjustments. For the demolition techniques can be used in reverse. So as you can see here, this is the picture of GMSK modulator using an IQ modulator. So, actual system technology. Gaussian minimum shift gain or GMSK modulation scheme is used in GSM or CPD technologies. So, as you can see here, the GSM, the Global System for Mobile, GSM uses a digital modulation format called 0.3 GMSK. The 0.3 describes the bandwidth of the Gaussian filter with the relation of the bit rate. So, CPD network diagram. GMSK is widely proposed and utilized for modulation for mobile radio data communication. GMSK is used for GSM, European Digital Cellular, and the CPDD in the US. So, actual electronic system technology. So, this you can see here, the AIS, an automatic identification system, is an automated tracking system that is placed other vessels in the vicinity. It is broadcast transponder system that operates the VHF mobile maritime band. So you can see here more ideas about the AIS. So this will be all. Thank you everyone for listening and have a good day. Bye bye.